Welcome to Butt and Butt Tutorials. I am Sheshadri, faculty for Social Science. This session is for 10th grade ICSE. The subject is history. The lesson we are discussing is the First War of Independence, 1857. This is session 2 of the same lesson. We will see what we had done in the previous session briefly. Now, we had seen in the previous session that the First War of Independence started on 29 March 1857 at Barakpur, that is a place near Calcutta. And later, the war later started at Meerut, Delhi, Lucknow, Kanpur and other places. We discussed the political causes, the socio-religious causes and economic causes of the revolt in the previous session. In this session, we will look at the last cause, that is the military cause, and then the changes that came in the administration and the reasons for the failure of the revolt. Now, military causes. The military causes that led to the revolt were many, and they are as follows. Several factors contributed to a change in the attitude of Indian soldiers towards the company. The distribution with Indian soldiers was one of the causes of the revolution. As we will see after the revolt, when the British Crown took over the management of India, they changed the proportion of the Indian soldiers. Now, in many cases, the proportion of Indian soldiers with respect to British soldiers was very high in many places. In many states, there were no British soldiers at all. So, this led to that feeling of supremacy among the Indian soldiers. So that was one of the factors. Indian and British soldiers were not treated equally. The salary of the Indian soldiers was too meager to support their families, while the duties of both the Indian and British and Indian soldiers were more or less similar. Like the British soldier would get 4 times higher a pay than the Indian soldier for the same kind of duties. So this also led to a lot of resentment among the Indian soldiers. Now the British Parliament passed the General Service Enlistment Act in 1856, which decreed that Indian soldiers could be sent overseas on duty. This act did not take into account the sentiment of the Indian soldiers. See, as per our old customs, our cultural customs and social systems that were there in India, a person is not supposed to cross the sea. A person is supposed to lose his own caste if he crosses the sea. So that is why Indian soldiers dreaded sea voyage. Now, so this General Service Enlistment Act requirement, this was against their customs. Then the other one was Indians were of the belief that British were invincible, but the British were beaten in the first Afghan war. Now, after this loss of the British, this convinced the Indian soldiers that the British also could be defeated. This gave courage to the Indian soldiers to wage a war against the British rule. They had thought they were invincible, but once they lost this Afghan war, the Indian soldiers felt that yes, the British army also could be defeated. Now, the consequences of the revolt. The revolt was suppressed and the War of Independence came to an end in 1858. Now, many changes happened because of the revolt. The first significant revolt was the end of the rule of the East India Company in India. This was as per Queen Victoria's proclamation. See, till now, India was not a British colony. It was only a trading post of the East India Company. But because of this proclamation, the Queen's proclamation incorporating the transfer of governance from East India Company to the British Crown was made public on the 1st of November 1858 by Lord Canning, the first Viceroy of India. Whatever was the post of the Governor General was also now became, he was the Governor General as well as the Viceroy. And this happened to be Lord Canning. Then the proclamation from the Queen also declared that the British would not interfere in their internal matters except in the case of misconduct and anarchy. After the proclamation of the Queen, the policy of doctrine of lapse was abolished. Please remember, doctrine of lapse was one of the major political reasons why this independence happened, where rulers could not adopt their successors or heirs. So that doctrine of lapse was abolished. It's a very important consequence. Now, relations with princely states. There was a change in the policy of the new government towards the Indian princes in order to make them loyal to the British. They were like pampered. Their pensions and all that were regularly given, and it was assured to them that all the treaties entered with the company would be honored. Now, the British, the East India Company, from time to time, to win over the different princes of different kingdoms in India, they had entered with treaties to make the prince happy or to make the king happy of that particular region. Now the Queen has assured them that all these treaties will still be valid and would hold good. Their territories would not be annexed to the British Crown. They were given the right to adopt sons and successors. That is the offshoot of the abolition of doctrine of lapse. Now, so they were free to just go ahead. Suppose somebody did not have a natural heir, they could go ahead and adopt sons and successors. End of Peshwaship and the Mughal rule. Both of these ended. As Nana Sahib, the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II, who had taken part in the war, could not be traced, the office of the Peshwa was abolished. Actually, Nana Sahib, we saw that Nana Sahib gets defeated when he does the uprising in Kanpur. So, and he vanishes after the war, so the office of the Peshwa was abolished. Similarly, the title of Mughal Emperor was also abolished with the death of Bahadur Shah II in 1862. Immediately after the uprising, they exile him. They sent him on exile to Myanmar. And after his death, the title of the emperor, Mughal Emperor itself, gets abolished. Then, but this was again a very negative thing by the British, but they used it to keep the people in control. Policy of divide and rule. After 1858, the British continued their policy of divide and rule by giving special protection and concessions to the princely states. In the sense, ordinary people were left out of these special concessions, encouraging hatred and ill feelings among the Hindus and the Muslims, so that the people of India could never challenge the British authority. The Mughal Empire has ended, and there were a lot of Hindus in the country who were not happy with the Mughal Empire. Now, Obviously, all Muslims were happy with the Mughal Empire. Now, British used this caste divide, and with the Hindus they would complain on the Muslims, and with the Muslims they would make complaints on the Hindus. So that Hindus and Muslims don't join together and challenge the British authority. So that is why they used that tactic. There were lots of changes in the army. Now, the Indian Army had been mainly responsible for the crisis of 1857. After the revolt, it was thoroughly reorganized and built up on the policy of division and counterpoise. The strength of the European troops in India was increased from 45,000 to 65,000, and the number of Indian troops was reduced from 238,000 to 140,000. You can see a significant reduction there. It is almost, of course, about almost 40% of reduction there. Now, all big troops and artillery departments were reserved for the Europeans. Heavy machinery, artillery, tanks and all this were never given to Indians. Discrimination on the basis of caste, region and religion was practiced in the recruitment to the army. Newspapers, journals and nationalist publications were prevented from reaching the Indian army to keep them separated from the rest of the population. All the popular uprisings that happen, as we will see in the coming chapters, when the nationalist movements began, those which were covered in newspapers, the British prevented the newspapers from reaching the army, so that the soldiers here don't get news of what is actually happening outside. Please remember, it was the printed matter in those days which was a major means of communication. Access to telephone very few people had, and there was absolutely no television. So printed matter, that is newspaper and other printed publications, were the only means of mass communication, mass media. Now, economic exploitation happened in a different way after this British Crown took over. The revolt of 1857 ended an era and sowed the seeds of a new era. That is the era of territorial expansion gave place to the era of, please note the change in spelling, it's not era, it's era of economic exploitation. India became a typical colony of the British by exporting raw materials and importing British goods. It is actually called, in today's language, it is called dumping. I mean, and there are lots of laws nowadays which are in place. It's called anti-dumping. You cannot just come and dump your goods over to another country. So there will be duties on that. But in those days, British goods were brought in with very low duties, so that they could be sold here at a low price, and local products suffered a lot. Peasants, rural artisans, etc. were impoverished under the British rule because local produce became costlier. Local produce became non-existent in many cases. Now, causes of the failure of the revolt. The revolt of 1857 was an unsuccessful but heroic effort to eliminate foreign rule. If you look at the way it happened, it was not planned all over the country at one time. Please remember again, communication in those times was a big issue. Like one region did not know what was happening in another region. Second, the main causes were disunity of the Indians, lack of complete nationalism, which actively helped the British. See, each of these princely states which fought the British, which did the revolt, they did so keeping in mind only their particular kingdom's interest. There was no pan-Indian cause there. So that was also one reason. Lack of coordination among sepoys, peasants, zamindar and other classes was also a reason. Dear students, we have to remember that waging a war is a very organized effort. Now, like, unless, for example, the British Army, we will see later also when we see the world wars and all that. It is a very organized effort. There needs to be a lot of interdepartmental coordination. In this case, with the Indian soldiers and the farmers here and the zamindars, there could be no coordination because it was not a very planned event all over the country. Also, each of the classes had their own motives for participating in the revolt. The soldiers wanted a better deal in their salaries. The zamindars wanted their areas back. The peasants wanted to stop giving taxes. So each class had their own motive. Those were the reasons for the failure. Now, significance of the revolt. The important element of the revolt lay in Hindu-Muslim unity. People exhibited patriotic sentiments without any touch of communal feelings. This was the first time because there was a lot of cultural divide between Hindus and Muslims, also because of the Mughal Empire in places where the Mughal Empire was there. Now, this Sepoy Mutiny or the First War of Independence, it brought Hindus and Muslims together. No doubt it began as a mutiny of soldiers, but soon turned into a revolt against the British rule in general, which lay the foundation for next further activities towards independence movement. Now, this is almost, we are at the end of this chapter. The origination of nationalism is one of the most distinguishing features of the second half of the 19th century. In the sense, it was all, India itself was all a set of princely states. The whole idea of a Republic of India was not there, but this particular revolt, it brought into fore that as the love for country, nationalism was one of the things, one of the offshoots. And this originated from the concepts of nationalism and the right of self-determination initiated by the French Revolution. Actually, it was the French who first, the French Revolution where citizens rose against monarchy. It was French and then the Americans. All this happened. And those were the things which influenced this movement also. The socio-religious reform movements as an offshoot of modernization introduced by the British in India and as a reaction of the Indians to the British colonial policies. So, prior to this First War of Independence, India never had stood together as a republic, but from now on, that pan-Indian identity that took roots because of this. With this, we come to the end of this chapter. Any doubts, please contact us at these phone numbers, or you can send a message to the Button Bud mobile app. Thank you.